Hi, I'm Vooght. Searching for Osiris and the Tree of Life is part 3 of the Ancient Cosmological Gods trilogy. Chapter 3 Otherworlds. The Mayan Tree of Life holds much in common with ancient Egyptian mythology, whereby the tree of choice, the Ceiba, was said to be responsible for holding the entire universe within it. Moreover, the Ceiba, aka the Yachi, was also wholly symbolic of the axis mundi, which connected the underworld and the cosmos with the terrestrial plane we fondly call reality. The underworld, or Xibalba, roughly translates as the place of fear, insomuch it was the gods of death who were said to reside within it. Here, then, it would appear to mirror the mythological lore of the Nile Valley, as we also understand that it was the god of resurrection Osiris who dwelt within the confines of the acacia tree and ruled over the souls of the deceased in the realms of the underworld known as the fields of Aru. Aru, we find, is also described by the ancient Greeks as the field of reeds, to which this particular investigation will slowly start gravitating towards answering why. For now, however, it's vital for us to understand that the chosen Mayan tree of life, not unlike the ancient Egyptian acacia, is extremely rich in the otherworldly chemical compound N,N-dimethyltryptamine, the spirit molecule, DMT. Also highly revered for its consciousness-altering analogues hidden within is the sacred vine of souls, known locally as ayahuasca. This ancient Amazonian shamanic tool holds much in common with pre-Renaissance period artwork, which describes the same kind of spiritual ascension which sees mortal souls and saints alike enter a heavenly plane amongst the realm of the gods. The example expressed here from the 12th century depicts the ladder of divine ascent from the St. Catherine's Monastery in the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt no less, whereby Jesus, albeit Osiris, is pictured waiting atop. Another Pre-Colombian and Mayan creator deity who also appears to reflect the myth of Osiris is Itzamna, a creator god, ruler of heaven and day and night. In the second book of the series, we discuss the potentiality of Osiris being metaphoric of DMT and the pineal gland, which is responsible for secreting essential hormones into the body's circularity system. We also inquired as to the likelihood of Horus and Set being allegorical of said hormones serotonin and melatonin, which are secreted during daylight hours and darkness respectively. It's curious then to discover the etymology of Itzamna shares the same characteristics as the myth of Osiris. In The Spirit in the Sky, we uncovered the profound nature of a mythological god who is likened to the lifeblood or sap of the acacia, notwithstanding the entire magical law of resurrection and a plane of existence beyond the scope of our everyday perception. Rather intriguingly, we find that the prefix Itza translates as both magic and sap. Connotations surely abound. And let us not forget the Mayan underworld was also described as being hidden within the constellation of Orion, Orion itself being described as a gateway to the gods. If this particular train of thought was in any doubt, however, one of the most celebrated and iconic depictions of the Mayan Tree of Life clearly depicts the act of purging or vomiting in the upper realm. The act of purging being wholly indicative of ingesting the tree's sacred secretion, more commonly known as ayahuasca. Here, then, our ancient ancestry were clearly trying to reflect the fact that this particular methodology is more than mere coincidence. The ever-present anthropomorphic iconography can surely only be equated to the interdimensional deities this otherworldly intoxicant reveals to the initiate therein. Moreover, the DMT deity archetypes, albeit machine elves and jesters, appear to be extremely commonplace regarding pre-Columbian artefacts also. The examples pictured clearly depict the much famed trickster profiles witnessed upon many breakthrough doses of DMT. Not a great deal is known about these particular otherworldly artefacts, which continue to defy rational explanation. However, what we can be certain of is the fact that the region was, and largely still is, practicing a tried and tested methodology regarding their own sacred plant-based secretion. Anadenanthria columbrina is a psychoactive variety of which its seeds are known to contain bufotenine, 5-MeO-DMT, and NN-DMT. And because of the uncanny connotations which go hand in hand with these psychoactive supersubstances, the otherwise mythical notion somewhat loosely termed as El Dorado may well be better described as the DMT realm itself. The artifacts themselves serving as a timeless reminder of what waits for us beyond the material bonds of everyday waking reality within the framework of the DMT experience. And thus, it becomes extremely evident that the artifacts' creators were clearly trying to depict the archetypal jester-like machine elves which have become much famed via first-hand breakthrough reportees in recent years. Researcher and ethnobotanist Dennis McKenna adds further weight to this particular proposal via the archaeological discovery which suggests that DMT was central to use in Tiahuanaco, a culture in North Bolivia, and the pre-Incan cultures of ancient Peru. The Ponce monolith figure found in the Tiahuanaco complex holds two ritual objects, a snuff tablet and a pouch of tubes used for ingesting powdered Vooght seeds from the Anadenanthera columbrina. The archaeological findings in the nearby areas confirm that the equipment for inhalation of psychoactive powders usually consists of a small tray, a snuffing tube, a spoon, and leather pouches to contain the powders. The patterns of Vooght seeds found on the statue also suggest that its use was central to the Tiahuanaco culture. All of a sudden, the original hypothesis regarding the myth of Osiris being an archaic axiom for as above so below, being a formula to unite a microcosmic and molecular understanding reflected upon the cosmos as a two-dimensional template of DMT within the structure of Orion, doesn't appear to be too outlandish after all. On the contrary, the ancient Mayan, Aztec and Inca civilizations also highlight their own otherworldly constellation, which more than mirrors the myth of Osiris. The Chacana, or Andean cross, is a stepped cross which is said to be symbolic of the tree of life, and the three levels of existence known as the Hanapacha, the upper world inhabited by the gods, the Kaypacha, our world of everyday existence, and the Ukar, an underworld inhabited by the spirits of deceased ancestors and deities with direct access to the Kaypacha. The hole in the center of the Chacana is said to act as a mode of transit or portal by which the shaman may access other immaterial planes of existence. The etymology of the Chacana is rather revealing too, as the native Quechua language describes the prefix chaca as a bridge or a means by which to cross over. One of the main focal points regarding this particular deep dive into antiquity is to show the ever-present fingerprint of a wholly connected global understanding regarding humanity's all too obvious hidden history. And rather remarkably, the significance of the Chicana symbology isn't strictly limited to the South American Andes. For recent discoveries made within the Indus Valley, northwest India, there appears to be a shared methodology regarding these two otherwise unconnected cultures. Classically described as the Harappan civilization, which flourished between 3300 and 1900 BC, the Harappans share an absurdly similar system of script with those of Easter Island, over 2,000 miles off the coast of South American Peru. The traditional timeline of Easter Island and its inhabitants is rather ridiculously recalled by archaeologists to sometime around 700 AD. Notwithstanding the fact that the famous Moai statues sharing a plethora of uncanny carvings found at Göbekli Tepe, which is typically dated to around 12,000 years old. The Moai themselves being buried almost up to their necks, before archaeologists finally discovered that they did in fact have entire torsos freakishly similar with the T-shaped pillars found at Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. So, it's hardly surprising then to find that the Rongo script and that of the Harappan are almost identical. Even more astonishing, we find that burial sites across the Indus Valley are unearthing intricately inscribed seals used to guide the recently deceased between realms with what can only be described as the ancient South American talisman, the Chacana, the significance of which is continually being ignored by the mainstream mindset. The fact that the Harappan were using this ancient iconography in wholly the same context as their South American counterparts is absolutely astonishing. Furthermore, the constellation which is wholly symbolic of the Chacana is known today as the Southern Cross, or Crux, and, moreover, the brightest star in this particular grouping is recognized as Mimosa, which is a variety of acacia with highly extractable potentials of DMT, the essential ingredient to the shamanic intoxicant ayahuasca. And it's here where the all too obvious profundity of fellow researcher and writer Jeremy Narby's conclusions appear to somewhat bolster my own brave blueprint of an ancient understanding of the nature of reality and the microscopic world of mind-manifesting molecules traversed by indigenous shaman of the Amazon basin. Narby's groundbreaking title, The Cosmic Serpent, was originally published in 1995. After the Canadian anthropologist originally undertook an investigation into the native people's protection and sustainability of their rainforest habitat. But the subsequent line of inquiry was soon redirected instead towards the revelations of the indigenous shamanic know-how regarding an unprecedented insight into the botanical molecular biology of the Amazon. The Ashaninka shaman appeared to be privy to a world beyond our own perception and remained steadfast that their phenomenal knowledge of the botanical varieties around which they were surrounded was in fact imparted to them by the plant spirits themselves while under the influence of the hallucinogenic properties extracted from their chosen tree of life. Further to this, however, Narby now understood the all too obvious significance regarding the ever-present twin serpent symbolism as a metaphor for a modern understanding of biochemistry we know as DNA. The shaman described their inexplicable plant-based communications as a language twisting, as if it were the DNA itself imparting its undeniable understanding of its own molecular makeup. And it appeared to be an archaic yet global phenomenon, countless examples of which are found around the world whereby iconography of entwined serpents, braided ropes and spiral ladders are depicted as a stairway between the realms of the material and immaterial alike. Take the ancient Egyptian iconography of the cosmic serpent, known as the provider of attributes, for example. The glyphs which accompany this twin-headed, albeit entwined serpent, directly translate as spirit, bubble, vital force, and water. And underneath the chin of said serpents is the ancient Egyptian cross, or Ankh, which is symbolic of the key of life. And Narby would certainly appear to be correct when stating that its connections with DNA are obvious and that they work on all levels, revealing DNA is shaped like a long single double serpent or a wick of twisted flax. It is a vital force that develops from one to several, and its place is water. And Narby's well-founded overview gives rise to the question, why are these metaphors so consistently and so frequently used unless they actually mean what they say? Rather intriguingly, we find that this shamanic methodology of describing molecules by way of a mind-manifesting mixture of mythology and allegorical allure has been repeated via one of the most ancient and otherwise isolated cultures on the face of the planet. Native Australian symbology depicted by the Dreamtime narrative of the Aboriginal peoples holds much in common with both South American shaman and our original line of investigation, the myth of Osiris. Dating back some 65,000 years or so, the Aboriginal Tree of Life mythology is centered around the Yaran, or white gum tree. This particular variety is also part of the Acacia family and is wholly symbolic of the constellation of the Southern Cross. Legend has it that at the beginning of time, when Baiame, the sky spirit, walked the earth, he moulded the first humans out of the red earth and brought them to life. The same fabled creation story familiar to Christianity also appears to be somewhat borrowed from the ancient Egyptian story of creator deity Amun. Further to the story, however, the first human to know death was found by his peers at the foot of the Yaran tree with Yowie, the spirit of death. Yowie, it is said, lifted the dead fellow and placed him within the hollow trunk of the tree, before a deafening burst of lightning and thunder set it ablaze and lifted it skyward until it disappeared from view and was replaced by the constellation of the Southern Cross. The parallels regarding the myth of Osiris are quite remarkable. The body of Osiris was entombed within the trunk of the acacia before he was resurrected as the constellation of Orion. And rather astonishingly, the dot-like depictions which describe these aboriginal tales known as the Dreamtime are not unlike the microscopic world of molecular structures familiar to the worlds of both 21st century chemists, biologists, and those of South American counterparts exposed by Jeremy Narby. Stranger still, the otherwise hidden credence of said Dreamtime storyline also speaks of rainbow serpents and the notion of humanity's life force arising from water. The Australian outback may in fact appear to be somewhat barren and lacking regarding its fondly adopted namesake, bush. But just like the famous Christian myths where God speaks to Moses from within the midst of the burning bush, the Aboriginal territories are in fact littered with DMT analogues also. I really don't believe that it's a bridge too far to suggest that these and other mythologies hold a common train of thought. Once again, I'm RN Vooght, and Searching for Osiris and the Tree of Life is available via Amazon. Thank you for listening. That's the spirit.